For this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to import audio files into Ableton, and I'm also going to show you how to properly grid them to the computer's Ableton's internal grid, and I'm going to show you how to slice those samples that you've aligned to MIDI so that you can sample them out manually or digitally using your mouse. So first things first, we're going to want to find our audio samples. So I'm just going to go into iTunes. I've got this one selected. You all will know it, Umbrella Acapella, a song we may have heard a bit too many times, but it works well for these purposes. So it usually takes a couple seconds for it to load in, but I've already loaded it before and the computer remembers the information. It shows up down here. You'll notice all these warp markers, the little yellow flags, and that's the computer automatically trying to grid the song to its grid using the transients on how it thinks that it actually goes. And more often than not, it's not right, so we're going to have to go in and fix that. So let's just listen to what the computer gave us first.
You have my heart, and we'll never be worlds apart.
Okay, first of all, it's a little bit too slow. We'll jump that up to 110, and we'll zoom in and see how these are aligning to the grid.
You have my heart, and we'll never be worlds apart. Maybe in magazines, but you...
Okay, so it's not aligned. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to align whatever samples we're using. So we're not going to go through the process of aligning the whole song. I mean, that would take a really long time. You don't want to get into that. What you want to do is you want to think of the parts that you intended to use for your sampling and find them and just align the segments. So I think I had a part right around here that will work well. This is the chorus, before the chorus, right around here.
Because in the dark, you can't see shiny cars, and that's still beam star, baby, cause in the...
So what we want to do is we want to find a one beat, and probably best to find the one beat of the first beat of a segment. So this is the first beat of 4 bars right here on this transient. So I'm going to click it, and the easiest way to get that aligned with the grid, I find, is to right click and just set 111 here. And there we are, it's perfectly aligned right on the grid. And now we'll listen through. But we want to use the metronome to get it to be able to tell whether we're in time or not, because just seeing the bars isn't enough. I find the metronomes kind of annoying, so I'm going to just drop in a bass kick, because it just sounds a bit better than a metronome does. Because if you're aligning quite a bit of music, that metronome will really get on your nerves. Okay, so just on quarter notes, and let's see how it sounds.
In the dark, you can't see shiny cars, and that's when you need me there.
So we're already at a sync right now. So what we're going to try and do first is find the second beat of this bar. So we're just going to listen for it, and it should be this one right here, because it's pretty close and it was just a little slow.
In the dark, you can't see shiny cars.
Yeah, the shiny car is right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to align this with the second beat. And you'll notice if I move this over, and I haven't deleted this warp marker, it only shortened this little section in here, and that's not going to sound right, because we want the whole section to be even. So just like that, now it should sound in time up to the second bar.
In the dark, you can't see shiny cars, and that's when you need me there with you.
And it's going out again. So we noticed that the third beat was right here along this transient, the same thing, just a little bit behind. So the computer just thought that everything, and we're going to delete this so that shortens everything. This computer just read out everything a little bit slower than it actually was. So we're going to listen again, make sure we did that properly, and then we're going to try and find the fourth one.
You can't see shiny cars, and that's when you need me there. With you I'll always share. Because...
Okay, so it looks like it's right here, but I couldn't quite tell exactly. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to set a loop on, whoops, oh, we're going to turn that off. I'm going to just loop it up to, oh, that's annoying. Loop it up to number 5 here for a 4-bar loop. And I'm gonna wait, I'm going to turn that loop off actually. I'm going to listen and I'm going to find the one beat over here instead of trying to find the hidden one in there. And that'll just save us some time because you can spend a lot of time if you're just having trouble on one transient. Sometimes it's good to go to the next and then it might line itself up. So let's listen to that. And it's pretty obvious right here. She is dead on the beat, so we want that there. We're going to get rid of this so that shortens everything between those two markers. And it looks like this one's probably our transient right in there. Yeah, so we're going to speed that up right there. And we'll okay, so that's close enough for the tutorial purposes. I'm going to turn the loop on because we're ready to slice this to a new MIDI track. So you don't have to select anything, just have your section looped. You want to right click anywhere here and you'll notice the slice to MIDI track. Before I do that, I'm actually going to name it, because if you want to slice a couple, it's good to name them first, or else you'll just have so many MIDI slices you'll lose track of what's what very quickly. So I called it verse. And I'm just going to slice it to new MIDI track. 8th notes will work, and the built-in slicing preset will be fine. And now it's nice and labeled verse instead of just having a ton of MIDI files once you do this a couple times. And you'll notice here that it's lined up all of that segment of music into these little samples. That's what it does. It slices one big portion of audio into a bunch of little mini portions, and then you can sample those out separately. So I'm going to switch back to this view, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to play them, and you'll notice over here and over here they're going to light up whichever ones I'm playing. So if I play the C3, the first one, oh, too low right here. Okay. Now I'm actually going to turn up the tempo because 110 is hard to work with that slow when you're actually trying to sample things out. Turn it up to 130. I'm going to have the drums going with it. Okay, and what you can do is instead of just playing it in order, you can start to change things up by actually hitting notes all over. And it just sounds crazy like that if you don't sort of plan it out. So what I'm going to do before I do that, I'm just going to play it all the way through on the keyboard over here throughout all 32 slices, just so that you can see how they sound. You can't see shine cars, and that's when you need me there. With you I always share. And it's hard to get it right. So what you're going to want to do is if you want to record it manually through the keyboard like that, you just want to pick little portions and sort of repeat them and find little cool melodies that work for you. So I've thought of a couple that sound alright for just the tutorial's purposes. And I think over here we had one. And those ones just go well together, that's why I picked them. So and you definitely want to clean those up if you were to use them. I was just messing around earlier, and surprisingly they were the only two that I could sort of get going. But as you play with them and you get creative, you'll be able to find tons of cool stuff that you can do with it. So I didn't record that obviously because it sounded pretty bad. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a different way to slice to MIDI. Or not to slice to MIDI, but a different way to sample to use the slice to MIDI function. I'm going to duplicate this in case we want to come back to our verse. It won't be tampered with. And I'm going to go into the chorus for this one. So if I'm going to make sure I got this one highlighted, I'm going to zoom out, and we're going to find a spot in this chorus that will be fun to work with. So let's just listen somewhere in here. Let's get rid of this because it's not going to be in sync because we haven't set the grid yet. And we gotta bring this right back down or else it'll sound crazy when we're trying to get it in the grid. Now we should be alright.
You can stand under my umbrella. You can stand under my umbrella.
Okay, that works. So now I notice right in here, this transient here is the one beat of You Can Stand, and that's what we're going to use. So same thing as before. I'm going to right click here. Oh, sorry, computer froze a bit on me. Going to right click here, and I'm going to set 111. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this section, just loop that, but I want a bit more actually. I'm going to extend this to 3. So let's see how this sounds. We're going to turn our kick back on and see how the computer did in auto aligning this grid here.
You can stand under my umbrella. You can stand under my umbrella.
So it's a lot closer than the first verse was, but we should clean it up a little bit. Let's listen to it one more time with actually looking at it. Let's grab this last bit here. This might be enough to do it if we just grab the first bar of bar number 3, move it over. We gotta delete this first. And now we've taken the 2 bars that we see in the song, because this is the transient for the next part. We put that at the end. This should actually line it up fairly closely that we won't have to do much work to it.
You can stand under my umbrella. You can stand under my umbrella.
It's close enough for what we're doing at least. Alright, same thing. Oops. It's looped, so I don't have to select anything. Slice to MIDI. I've got it labeled chorus, so it's going to pop up as chorus and we won't have a get confused. And let's see how it turned out. Okay. So we got 16 slices this time. Let's listen to how it sounds.
You can stand under my umbrella. You can stand under my umbrella.
Alright, so for this one, I'm going to pop this up, because what we're actually going to do is we're going to just drag these around with the mouse instead of recording it manually. So let's say we want to, let's get rid of this second part here. And let's take these You Can Stand, and we'll drop them back down to the original You Can Stand, which is a little bit lower in the pitch. So you'll hear it and you'll know what I'm talking about.
You can stand under my umbrella. You can stand, you can stand, you can stand, you can stand.
And you'll notice that if we were to have left them up there, it would just be a beat repeat. You could have done that with a beat repeat because you're just repeating these 2 notes 3 times. But by using the slice to MIDI, we can bring it down here, and we're actually repeating these notes over here. So it's a cool function, and you can't really do that with a beat repeat, not easily at least. And I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to drag this out, and I'm going to change the length to 4. Now for a bit of variation on these next ones, I'm going to actually move them to as if it was just a beat repeat there. Oh, a little too close. And let's see how this sounds. But first, let's bring this back up to 130 to sound much better in sampling.
You can stand under my umbrella. You can stand, you can stand, you can stand, you can stand, you can stand under my umbrella.
Oops. That wasn't quite right. There we go. Let's hear it just a second.
You can stand under my umbrella. You can stand, you can stand, you can stand, you can stand.
And another cool thing about the slice to MIDI like this, as opposed to just using a beat repeat to get these effects, is that if you want to create variation throughout your songs, if you're doing this pattern, say 4 times, it'll get kind of boring. So what you can do is you can grab these individual ones and just sort of vary them like that, something like this. And as it goes on, you can make all these different little variations, and it'll sort of keep your listener sort of involved as opposed to getting kind of bored of the constant sound.
You can stand under my umbrella. You can stand, you can stand, you can stand, you can stand under my umbrella. You can stand, you can stand, you can stand.
So you can tell that's a lot cleaner than trying to do it manually. But what I find for doing it manually is just that's how you can sort of figure out what you want to do. Because if you just start dragging these around, you'll start just getting a jumbled sound. You won't know what's going on. So that's it for this tutorial. You should be able to warp files now, audio files, bring them into Ableton, and you can now use the slice to MIDI function. And it's got lots of uses, not just vocal samples, tons of other different things. So that's it for today, so stay tuned for next week.